Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome to Sunday International Big Quick Workshop. My name is Dan B. I'm a recovered alcoholic and sobriety date 1st of February 21. This workshop is facilitated by Kemble. This study relies on you listening, but please, we pray that you have your big book in hand and follow along with a pen, pencil, highlighter, make any notes you need and pause if you have to. Write down any questions and we'll take them at the end of the meeting. We will keep everybody muted during this workshop except for the facilitators. Any inappropriate behavior will not be tolerated and you will be removed by one of the co-hosts. This meeting is being recorded. The audio portion only is being recorded and only of the facilitators. The recording will be shut down at the end of the class before taking any questions in order to preserve your anonymity. Have a great meeting, everybody. And how we start this meeting is with the step 3 prayer, page 63. Join me, please. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Thank you, Kemble, over to you.
All right, thank you, Dan, for the great introduction, and welcome everybody to the Keystone Keystone Weekly International Big Book Meeting. My name is Kemble. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and happy Easter to all. And welcome all who are here today. It's a blessing to be here alive and sober today, and to be acquainted with some amazing people in this program of recovery called Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous is the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And it's a beautiful thing. You know, I struggled with alcoholism for 42 years out of my short life. But over the past 3 years, by the way, my sobriety date is February the 3rd, 2020. And that's about the same time I was introduced to the Keystone Group. There I found Tony and Joe and my sponsor and a lot of other close friends. And they all chipped in and took me through the process, helped me get through this process in the book. And it led to a spiritual awakening, or other words, a psychic change. It produced in me an effect that was essential for me to recover from alcoholism. So today I want to touch on some high points and highlights in step 6 and step 7. Last week we did interaction basically on step 5. But of course there are other points and highlights that I'd like to be touching on as we go through this process. So we'll start today on page 76, the very first paragraph. And I'd like to ask my co-host Dan to read the first paragraph on page 76.
Yeah, of course, no problem. Page 76, please. Step 6. We emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, everyone? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing.
Thank you, Brother Dan. No doubt about it. I'm grateful for step 6. Of course, we just touched up and finished on step 5, right? So it asks the questions if we can answer, well, not a question, but it's a statement. If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. Important word, it says we look at step 6. Now, step 6, we don't have to take a personal inventory as we did in step 4. And in step 5, we went through this inventory regarding another person. But if we can answer now to our satisfaction, we look back on where we come to so far. So far, we've covered the book from the title page up to page 75. And then I'd like to share this at the bottom of page 75. It says returning home. That's after we do step 5 with a sponsor and God. It says returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains 12 steps, page 59 and 60, and how it works. Carefully reading the 5 first proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, but we are building an ark through which we shall walk a free man at last. So the questions we ask ourselves, is the work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? And have we tried to make mortar without sand? So the top of page 76, right? Just a little short paragraph. And that's all of step 6. But notice one thing in step 6. Bill did not mention anything about defects of character in there at all. What he did mention were those things we have admitted are objectionable. Now, surely in taking steps 4 and 5, when we saw resentments, the harms we did to others, the fears that we had, then we had a chance to look at the things which stem from our basic character defects of self-centeredness, self-seeking, selfishness, dishonesty, frightened, and inconsiderate character. Now, when we could see those things and what they did to us, that caused us deep down to do things that hurt other people. And sometimes what we did to those people, it made them want to retaliate against us. And it blocks us off from God because we are still baffled with these defects that we possibly don't want to let go of. And I'll get to the explanation of that in just a moment. So then surely by now we can recognize the things that are objectionable to us as human beings. Because in my drinking career, I had a whole lot of things that was objectionable to me. So that's why I never could find a relationship with God. I tried all means in the world, and I had everything at my disposal. Treatment centers, detox centers, the VA used to treat me for free. 90 days at a time, 120 days, 180 days, however long I need to be in the program, under the care of them in the hospital, in the treatment program. I had all these things. So, but I was still, every time I got out of one of them places, I still would pick up that drink again, and then everything starts all over, better known as the vicious cycle. It started all over again every time. So then, by now, by the time we get here in step 6, if we still are looking at things that are objectionable to us, then we're still simply relying on self. Now remember, self cannot overcome self. I tried it before and it never worked for me. But then it asks us a question, right? We ask God to help us to be willing to have those things removed. Now an important point. We can ask God to remove these defects of character. Now he's not going to remove all of our defects of character because from the day we are born to the day we are die, we will always have defects of character. But the good news is God will remove those defects of character that are blocking us off from him. Once again, it's rooted in selfishness. My main block from God was me. Selfishness, self-centeredness. See, I had to quit playing God. I really thought I was God Almighty and all powerful. That's how the alcohol made me feel. Anybody ever take a drink and the head blow up and you're like, oh, shoot, I'm above you. You know what I'm saying? That's just how it was in my drinking career. I was always the man that had the plan. I had all the answers. And I always say, you are under me because I got all the power. You know, and the great fact is I had all this alcohol in me and it baffled my mind to make me believe that stuff. You know, my drinking career, I couldn't distinguish the true from the false. So this was a false illusion as Bill talks about it. You know, Bill talks about the delusion and illusion and there's several other words that Bill used, but they all mean the same thing. I was simply stuck on myself. So, and then another point here in step 6, even though we can see that these old defects, we can see what these defects are doing to us, right? But what are we going to do about it? say for instance, a lot of these defects that we might not want to turn them loose. And it happens for a couple of reasons, right? So one reason is that some of these defects that I had or that we may have, they were fun, right? We didn't know how we could ever live life without these defects. So I used to think, well, if I get this defect removed, I'm not going to be fun no more. I won't be silly no more. So that was one, self. That was my major defect, right? So if I change myself, I ain't gonna be the same person. But I still had that thing lingering on. Well, am I gonna be a glum lot, or am I gonna be a bored lot? And that was just what was planting in my mind. Though I did all the way up to step 5 by now. So and then there's a question that I was faced with one time. It was very early in recovery, and it goes like, well, if God removes all my character defects, I won't have any personality left, right? And the truth is, the matter is that's probably going to be right, because now we begin to look at life in a different point of view. Step 3, when it says that we were reborn, right? But the big book tells us we were reborn. So now we look at life on a different basis, a whole different footing. And I think we recovered that back on page 68. So these defects that we don't want to let go of, it can be hard, but it can be done. So then share this. Then I want to touch on highlighting another point in the book. What we fail to understand, or at least me, is that when God takes away those defects, right, he's going to replace it with something better. And he did. Today we can live life on a whole lot better basis, because throughout the process of this big book, and practicing the principles in all our affairs, it grants us a design for living, and it really works. It works when times are good. It works when times are bad. Matter of fact, it works for me constantly, every day, because we granted a daily reprieve today. And that means we granted a stay of execution from a drink today. Because I know if I take a drink today, I'll probably be dead a whole lot earlier than I'm supposed to be, because we never know when our time. But I am quite sure a drink is going to take me on to an alcoholic death. And God saved me from this alcoholic death by introducing me to Alcoholics Anonymous. So back here, Dan, if you will, I'm going to go back to page 68. This deals with step 6. Yeah, page 68, where it says, perhaps there's a better way, the second paragraph. And you can read that for us, bro.
Yeah, of course, no problem, Kevin. Page 68, everybody. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so. For we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust in infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role he assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us and humbly rely on him. Does he enable us to match calamity with serenity?
Okay, yeah, thank you, brother. Outstanding. A different basis, right, and a different footing. The magical, not the magical part, but the great fact is that we can now have something better than we ever had before. And you're going to have a lot better life by doing so. Sometimes us as human beings, right, the part of our human condition is we would rather sit here and endure the pain that we done suffered from these years of being an alcoholic, a real alcoholic. And in personal experience, I used to be scared of this change, because for years, I couldn't see the future of me not having a drink of alcohol, not being able to drink. And that was one of my fears in my inventory. How can I live, in the future without drinking ever again, or even for a year or two, right? So I was scared. That was a huge fear, and I had to take this to my sponsor and God when we did step 5, because I was a true alcoholic, but I was comfortable with my life, even though it was unmanageable. I was a total wreck as a human being, a wreck, period. So, I just wasn't sure what it would be like living without alcohol. But you know what? The great fact is, this has been the best life ever. And it's grounded. Now back to page 68, right? It mentions that we trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. Just to the extent we think he would have us, we humbly rely on him. Then it says, does he enable us to match calamity with serenity? Yes. And it is so true. And this is grounded in our step 11 process. When we get to step 11, which that's the step that I was taught to live in every day, it helps us to match calamity with serenity, simply relying on God in every situation. See, step 11 covers our whole 24 hours in a day. It covers on awakening, right? Then it has some things we do every morning. And as we go through the day, this is a great part of the day. As we go through the day, when we run into a calamitous situation, we have a way out. It's grounded in that power that's greater than ourselves and not running on our own self-will. See, my self-will is what kept me drunk, and it kept me involved in calamity, because I used to bring calamity. I win in the world. I was going to bring it to you. I didn't care who you was, what you had going on. I was the tornado. I was the storm. I was that hurricane, that vicious cyclone that roared and tear things apart. That's how it was with me. But then step 11 also covers when we retire at night. We can review our day, and then we ask God for forgiveness, because we're going to make mistakes every day. That's no doubt about it. But, but by changing our focus now, by the time we get to the 6th step, we look at life on a different basis, no longer being rooted in me, 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 me. Now we can make the shift forward to how can we help other people. See, the whole world is inflicted with a spiritual malady. Now in the big book, the spiritual malady is not a symptom of being an alcoholic. It's a human condition. It involves all of us human beings. The greatest thing we have against us in the spirituality is that we are sinners, right? And we are going to do wrong. That's just being a human. Even when I remember when I was young kid, right? I used to be scared of this God, scared to sin, right? Because that's all I heard. You sin, and this gonna happen to you, that's gonna happen to me. And it ran me away from God. I wasn't ready to hear a message like that. But as years went on, as my alcoholism increased, and then I seen I couldn't fix myself, I knew something was wrong then. But it's pretty hard, say, for a doctor. So take for instance, this doctor. It'd be pretty hard for this doctor to do his own brain surgery, right? Anybody ever seen a doctor do his own brain surgery? There's something I ain't seen yet. But Alcoholics Anonymous produces miracles out of us, but a doctor simply can't do it. He's gonna have to be anesthetized, and that he'll be asleep. So how can he fix himself? Prime example of the alcoholic. I could not fix my darn self. So, but then that brings me back to the common solution while we're here on step 6. It's the great fact for us. And it's on page 17, Dan. If you read page 17, page 17, I want to touch on 17, where it goes, let me get to my book. The tremendous fact, the last paragraph.
Yeah, of course. No problem. Just that paragraph, yeah?
Yeah, just that last paragraph, the tremendous fact.
Yeah, cool. Page 17 is the start of chapter 2. There is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. No doubt about it. Look, we all have a common problem in being real alcoholic. We have what we call the problem of an alcoholic centers in his mind. And the big book calls this a malady, right? And it's basically unexplainable. And the second symptom of being an alcoholic is we have an allergy. It means we have an abnormal reaction to alcohol.
When we take a drink, we simply set off what we call a phenomenon of craving, and we can't shut it off. That makes us alcoholic. Our behavior didn't make us alcoholic. Our beliefs didn't make us alcoholic. But these two symptoms is what made us alcoholic. But the common solution, Roll Tide, everybody, and the common solution is this process laid out in the big book. And it's basically when you go through the process outlined in this book, just as the first 100 men and women did, and what they got wrote down, we come to have a spiritual experience and a psychic change. That is the solution, right? Alcoholics Anonymous is a spiritual solution. And Bill grounds on this throughout the book, because he got what we call the Keystone. And I love the group, my group, home group name, the Keystone Group, because he builds us an arch that'll lead us off into freedom, grounded in spiritual principles, right? So this is the great news this book carries for people who suffer from alcoholism. And I like to touch this on page 25. And it's dealing with step 6 as well, right? So I'll read this part then. Page 25, the first paragraph, where you see there is a solution, and it's down in italics. But then it says, almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us to do but to pick up the kit, the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed of. No doubt about it. And how do we acquire it? Well, we got to let God remove these things that are blocking us. He's gonna remove those, the most important thing, but I'm gonna still have defects. But I don't have to linger on these defects today. I know they are there. And it's simply we can work through it by conscious contact with God, no matter what defect that I have. But like I said, the major ones like selfishness, pride, wanting to be the boss of the cost and all of that. So he took all that mess away from me. When he took away the thought that I was God, that opened up a great big window. Well, God, you are greater than I am, right? So that's my major character defect, my number one defect. Of course, I had a lot of more things that was blocking me off from his presence, but he removed them as well. So, and then it comes to about dealing with the mind. Our minds are grounded, right? It's nothing more than a set of mental habits. It was ingrained with habits that fit our satisfaction. And when we grounded in self-centeredness, we still stuck on our satisfaction, not even caring what other people may have felt. We didn't care who we hurt. We didn't care about none of that thing. So these habits have been ingrained in our minds for so long. It all depends on how many years we drank. Like I said, I drank for 42 years. So I had 42 years of habits to bring out. And thank God, through the 12 steps, like I said, God removed these major defects. So, and it was automatic in my drinking career, for me to be selfish. It was automatic for me to be dishonest with people because I had to lie and cheat and steal and kill to get what I wanted, to get another drink. So that became automatic in my mind. What can I get from this person? What can I get from that person? And not even considering their feelings, just continuously to hurt other people. And I had no idea how life would treat me if I acted different than the way that I was used to acting all these years. And thank God for this program, right? And hold on, let me say something about the fears, right? The fear was, as I mentioned, how am I going to react differently if I sober up and have this spiritual experience? But the great fact is, having that relationship with God it just changed everything for me. I'm looking at things in a different light today. I want to be a help to people today. I don't want to be selfish to people today. And you know, I didn't remove these defects myself. God removes these defects of character. And I do want to share this just for a moment while it's on my mind. Uh, I don't force my beliefs in the God that I worship. I do worship the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and He's the only one that could help me when I was at the bottom of that pit and I could not crawl out. So today is a special day for me because what He did for me by His finished work on that cross, it saved me. It saved the whole world. So I want to thank you for letting me share that. That's a different format that I preach on, but it's just my experience, right? So, and I have to share my experience with other people. So I just wanted to say that. So as God takes away one character defect, right? He's going to replace it with something better. He's not going to take everything away at once. He'll replace one bad defect, and then He'll give us a change of character. He's going to replace it with something better. Well, I used to have the defect of, well, I don't love this person. I can't stand this person. I hate that person. I don't want this person around me. Well, you know what He did? God changed. When He changed this for me, when He developed in me this precious gift of sobriety, I can now honestly love people from the bottom of my heart without expecting anything from them. And that's from taking the process outlined in this book. So everybody I see today, I don't care if you're my enemy. If you're hungry, I'm going to feed you. If you don't like me, I don't care. I'm going to help you any kind of way I can. I simply have love for other people deeper than I ever known in my life before. Carrying this message. God gave me the power to carry this message, and I love to do it, and I love to help people who are suffering and struggling. Sometimes I lose nights of sleep thinking about who can I help next? How can I help? How can I be more presentable to this person? How can I help lead this person to a power greater than themselves? So, and that's exactly what it is. So, in my drinking career, I was acting against my will. Every day I drank against my will. I clowned against my will. Like I said, I took from people against my will. The drink became my master. You know, as Bill said, alcohol became my master. It became my master a very long time ago. And I can't, there's so many people that I heard over 42 years of drinking. And, you know, making amends was pretty easy for me because I simply took God with me to go to this person and apologize for him, you know, apologize to him. Didn't have to get no long preachers and no sermons. I just simply say, I want to make right what I did wrong to you. And we go from there. They can take it or leave. So I didn't have to explain to them that, you know, when I first approached him, I didn't have to just say, God this, God that. But before the conversation was over, believe me, I mentioned the name. And I didn't have no objections so far. And all the amends I did, people simply, they was proud of me coming to them to see that I had the balls to actually come face some of these people. Some of these people should have killed me when I went to make these amends. When you have God in your life, and the people, they can see the change when you come into water to make these amends. They'll say, well, he ain't staggering. He ain't falling down. I don't hear him cussing. See, that was a major effect on people because they remember how it was. So, and some people think step 6 is difficult, right? Well, if you really want to change here, at this point, we looking to develop a relationship with God, right? That's the purpose of this book. His main purpose is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, and that's God. So, but if I continue to dwell on my old thought patterns and my old character defects, they're going to grow and grow and grow. So if God removes something from us, why do I want to take it back? It's simply part of being a human, right? Sometimes you want to take it back, but then I have to remember every day is a day that we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. And you may ask, well, what is God's will for me? Well, we who have recovered from alcoholism, our will is to simply help other people who are struggling. Step 12, no doubt about it. Live in step 11 that keeps us in conscious relationship with God. And then if we're doing step 11, we're doing the previous 10 plus 12. So that's God's will for me, to help other people, to help them lead them to a power greater than themselves. And it'll change their life. It changed mine, and I'm so grateful for everybody that had a part in bringing me through this program, taking me through it, and developing in me, you know, things I couldn't do for myself. The only thing I could do for myself was take another drink and then just destroy other people in my life. That's the way it was for me. It didn't never stop until this life was changed for me. Remember, I couldn't change myself. God had to change me. I tried changing myself, and it just kept sinking me lower and lower and lower and lower. So thanks for that part. This book it's a miracle. It really is. And it's divinely inspired. That's all I can tell you, because it's God all through this book. All through it. So here on page 76, Brother Dan, we want to touch on a little bit about step 7. It's a short little reading too. The second paragraph, peeps, on page 76.
Yeah, the 7-step.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, cool. When ready, we say something like this: My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have now completed step 7.
All right, no doubt about it. Well, you know, people say we looking at step 7, right? And they're very step 6 and step 7, they're very short, and they are short for a reason. So, but then the process goes on to say we have then completed step 7, right? And notice, I don't see nowhere in step 7 reading where it says shortcomings. Bill didn't even mention shortcomings in this little reading, but he uses shortcomings and character defects, you know, frequently throughout the book. So look, we found these character defects, these shortcomings when we did step 4. In step 5, right, we talked to him with God, and then we talked to him with another human being. But the key word, we became willing to turn them loose in step 6. Willing is the key. You know, remember, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, these are indispensable. So here in step 7, it says, I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. No doubt about it. Willingness is so key. And then we ask God to give us strength to go out and do his bidding. I just talk about what our will is, God's will is for us. That's simply to reach out and help other people. We reach out to alcoholics first, but then, you know, being helpful in our homes, our communities, you know, other places we may go in life today. Instead of taking away the joy of other people, we can bring joy to other people's lives today, and it's a blessing. So we turn these things over to God. We hand them over and say, here, God. See, God don't need these steps. He's the creator, so he don't need a 12-step program. But it's a blessing that he instilled in a man. And then he connected, which is Bill, you know, Bill W. And he had to be driven by God. And then he got the chance to meet Dr. Bob and other alcoholics and then this program was incorporated. This book was produced. And that's but a miracle in itself. It's my second favorite book on the planet. The first one, of course, is my holy book. That's number 1 in my life. God is simply number 1 in my life. The solution for it, because I don't have the power to do what he can do. So God does not need to reach into my head either and remove these defects, leaving a hole in my head, so to say. If we think God he's gonna reach in our head and pull this one out, boom, it'll be a hole in there. But you know what God does though? He replaces these defects with something much better. So in this case, if we want God to take away our selfishness, right? Then I'm gonna have to start practicing being unselfish in everything. And with God's help and all the willingness that I can do through prayer and meditation, and slowly over a period of time, that old habit that I had or we have, it'll simply die and be replaced with something new. I am so grateful for this program that just gave me a spiritual way of living today. And a spiritual way of living today is simply rooted in God instead of distilled spirits, right? I spent 40 years plus of being rooted in distilled spirits, meaning bottle after bottle after bottle, debacle after debacle, everything. We all know how he was in our drinking career. So I had to let God take over when I was being dishonest. I had to let God take over and shift me to where I can be honest today. See, I had to get honest in step one. I had to get honest with myself at first. Well, God, I can't stop this drinking and stuff on my own. I'm simply powerless. I need power that's greater than me. My life is unmanageable because I cannot control how much alcohol that I drink once I take that first drink. That's the hardest part in the world for me to do. Oh, I mean, and you telling me alcohol powerful than me? Shoot, that's a lie. Then I go try it again. Then the very next time I tried again. Then it got to, I simply seen I couldn't beat this thing. It was beating me. It was killing me. I was headed to an alcoholic death. And I seen my life flash in front of my eyes. But you know, something that I'm so grateful for today. God was there the whole time. I just didn't acknowledge him because I was still playing him. Yeah, I remember calling my mother one time, right? Mom, you know what? I feel like I'm invincible because I was full of alcohol when I called at 3 o'clock in the morning from overseas. I said, only thing gonna kill me today was if my plane crashed and I'm flying across that water to come back to the United States. Now, what is that but being crazy? That's how the alcohol did me. It deluded my mind. I was living in a darn delusion for all those years, thinking I'm invincible. I'm a darn human being. But that's what alcohol did for me. I don't know how about y'all though, but that's how it made me feel. Yeah. I was simply better than you because I can drink more than you. I was better than you because I feel better than you. Do you know? That's the way it was. Then I wreak havoc on the world. I didn't care. Oh God, thank God for this process. You're gonna hear me say that a lot. That's just part of my life. Because he simply did for me what I never could have did for myself. I tried. So just a note on these first, when I was thinking about the first 5 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because we are looking at the problem, we're looking at the solution, and we are making a decision. Then we take that inventory, and once we take the inventory, we see these things, and then we talk them over with another person. The first 5 steps prepare us for these 2 great tools that we got in step 6 and step 7. And then our future life is based on how we apply these steps. Application is the key. I mean, we can have all the spiritual principles in the world, but if we don't practice them and apply them, we're not getting nowhere. So the big book tells us if an alcoholic failed to enlarge and enhance his spiritual life, he will surely drink again. And to drink again for us surely means, for us it is to die. We simply go on to, we can choose a spiritual way of life or choose to be doomed to an alcoholic death. Wow. Now, the big book says simple but not easy. A price has to be paid. Destruction of self-centeredness and selfishness and all of these things. See, these are things that blocking us from self. So the price had to be paid is we got to get out of ourselves. We asked God to relieve us of the bondage of self back in step 3. Remember step 2, we became willing to believe in something greater than me. That could restore me to sanity. So that's a hard price to pay. Oh, I can't I can't be self-centered and self-willed and all this no more. No, it's simply, it's hard, but it's easy. Today, we let God do for us instead of us trying to run the show. I got something to talk about on that later on. So, you know, what a blessing this is. Now back to, it says, when ready, we say something like this: my creator. Here's that word here. I am now willing. Here we become willing again, right? We become willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. Now, let me make this clear. We don't have to straighten up in order to approach God. You know, back in the beginning, God gonna take us whatever condition we are in at the beginning anyway. Because when I came to God after trying to fix myself for 4 decades, I came broken, untrusted. I was I was just a wreck. I was an alcoholic wreck. And of course, I was a wreck in people's lives. So God took me as I was, and I begged God for help. God, please help. Point me in the direction I need to go. I'm tired of being self-centered. I'm tired of hurting other people. I'm tired of just being a very evil and mean person. But deep down inside, I did have some feelings for people and things, but I couldn't grasp it because it was all rooted in me and nothing else. Nothing else mattered. Or did I get my way? If I didn't get my way, I simply pitch a temper tantrum, and then I end up in jail or wherever. I may end up in the hospital, jail, prison, or what. So some people think these are 2 hard steps, right? They're really not that. They're not hard at all. Matter of fact, I remember people used to say, step 4 gonna scare you, right? That was when I was just in the fellowship, and it was 12 stepping me through the book then. You're gonna be scared when you do step 4, but you know what? Once I found the Keystone Group and they simply took me through this process, I wasn't scared of nothing. No, I was joyful to take my step 4. I wanted to get this thing done. You know, there's nothing to be fearful of. You know, we ask God to remove our fears when they crop up, right? So let's go through with the process, and that's what I had to do. So here's a little note. This process, it changes all of our lives to the utmost of our ability. And then we begin to see the change. Other people gonna see the change first. But then we sense this change because we simply treat other people different than we did in our drinking career. Dan, I want to share this. I want you to read this part for me here. And it's back in the spiritual experience, right? I always like to touch on this part of the book. And you can read that first paragraph on page 567. No doubt about it.
Yep, no problem. First paragraph. Spiritual experience 567, everybody. The terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which, upon careful reading, shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Thank
Lovely.
you, brother. Yes. Notice the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. Personality change. You know, it's better known as a psychic change. You can call it a spiritual experience. You can call it a spiritual awakening. You can call it being God conscious. There's a lot of different names, but they all have the same meaning. So the great fact is, though, that it's about this common solution. Once again, our share, it reveals to us in this part of the book that the common solution to alcoholism is a vital spiritual experience. Now, don't get it twisted. It comes in different forms. In the beginning of AA and even in religion, right? There was people was having these experiences, and they was usually like all of a sudden a change. Like all of a sudden, Bill had what we call a white light experience. William James has a book called Varieties of Spiritual Experiences. And in the beginning, a lot of them was having them suddenly. But then, if they but the truth of the matter is they come in different forms. It manifests itself in different forms. For me personally, it took a long, long period of time for me to get this personality change developed. And you know, I didn't create this change myself. It took God, the power that's greater than me, to produce this change inside me, but I had to be willing. That's another key word here in step 7. Have to be willing. You know, willing to let God remove these things and trusting that He's gonna replace them with something new. So one thing, let me get my chain of thought. I'm gonna say something about the common bond. Oh yeah, I got it now. So back in There Is a Solution, again on page 17, right? What Bill is basically talking about is fellowship is not quite enough. Because he goes on to say about the tremendous fact, we covered that part. The tremendous fact for every one of us that we have discovered a common solution, the common problem. You know, it's the great bond that we have. But he said the real thing is the common solution. So the big book carries this message, which is the common solution for alcoholism. Once again, that vital spiritual experience or psychic change. So we all in a bond here. We was all bonded being baffled by alcoholism, simply had the utter inability to leave it alone. But then the common solution, you know, the fellowship is good, but let me share my experience. Over 3 decades in the fellowship, I never found a power greater than me so I can have a spiritual experience. Because nobody 12-stepped me through this book. The fellowship that I was in this part of the world, they was rooted in self, giving me their own opinions, their own ideas. And then as I look back and see these people that were talking to me, wasn't none of this in the book. So just go to meetings 7 days a week, 90 meetings in 90 days. Sure, that may help some people, but a real alcoholic like me, I can go to 300 meetings in 90 days, and it still wouldn't have got me sober because I was still rooted in self. If they simply took me through the program like it's supposed to be, we go from the front of the book, the title page, all the way through this book. Instead of saying just read this first part of the book or this page 1 through 164, you'll be okay. No, I was never okay. Before I got halfway through, I was already drinking again. So, but they didn't offer me a solution. No, meeting makers make it. Yeah, I went to meetings. I was forced to go to meetings. Some treatment centers and halfway houses I've been to, they made me go to meetings. So meeting makers is proof that it don't work. Meetings are good now because this is a meeting here. They're good, but it's what we get from the meeting. Are we getting the message from the big book, or are we getting somebody's ego message from the meeting? See, that's what kept me drunk for them 3 decades in and out the fellowship. But thank God for finding a big book based group, which is a big book workshop group. That's what I am part of. It brought me the solution, not their opinions, because nowhere in the book does it ask us, where is your opinion at? I ain't seen it yet, and I done read through this book many times. So, you know, it's a difference. But when we had this common bond, you know, step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. The message comes from this book. Not what I've been had logged in my mind all that time or some other person. Well, call me. If you feel like you want to drink, what is that going to do for an alcoholic like me? I'm going to call you after I drink. And though I might not never call you at all. And that was usually the instance. I wasn't finna call nobody. But the package store to make sure they were still open if it got late at night. So this was that fellowship that I was in, telling me stuff like this. Because, you know, people like Tony and Joe, several, there's many members in the Keystone Big Group, and my sponsor took me through it, but then I had help. Joe helps me, Tony helped me, and they all helped me get through this thing. A lot of other members helped me through this thing. Members of the Keystone today still help me through these things, right? And it's not, I'm not grounded in self no more. It's because of the change that God produced in me. It's something I couldn't produce for myself. So I thank God for that. So something else I wanted to share. Okay, yeah. What I'm thinking about when I was rooted in my alcoholism, you know, I was sitting there figuring out why. I couldn't stop drinking. And I had no idea I was a darn alcoholic. So oh no, I know I started getting in a lot of trouble. Oh man, it's just crazy. So here it is. That's one more thing about the fellowship, right? And this is what Bill brings this point home. He said, you know, the fellowship is one of the powerful elements. You know, it's talking about the cement on page 17, right? It binds us together, but that alone is not enough. The great fact is that we need both elements for recovery. The same things Bill needed himself in order to recover. The fellowship, when Ebby came to bring Bill a message, right, that started a fellowship. And then the second part is the practical program of action that Ebby brought to Bill, which led him eventually to the vital spiritual experience. And Bill later incorporated that into the 12 steps. So, you know, now today we know the problem, we know the solution, and we know the course of action. You know, and that's the real solution. Again, once again, the vital spiritual experience, the spiritual set of tools that we pick page on how it works, page 58. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, where the path that they are following is the path laid out in this big book when it was produced in 1939. But the path had already been laid out when Ebby brought it to Bill. And that incorporated and eventually got Alcoholics Anonymous on the road. So I want to share some pages when it comes dealing with this, the Arch of Freedom. And it's talking about the stones in the book. These stones are very powerful. So we can look at some stones on page 12. We can look at page 25. We can look at page 47. We can look at page 62. We can look up page 75, which we touched on that last week. Yep. And then on page 97 as well. Let me read something on page 97. Oh. Well, you have to give me a minute on that one. But anyway, while I'm thinking, I want to share. Yeah, I want to share something on page 97. Excuse me for the delay. I had to find out. Now, it says on top of page 97, very first, well, second paragraph, that's a short sentence. It says, never avoid these responsibilities, but be sure you are doing the right thing if you assume them. Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. Helping others, now that's the foundation stone. I just went over the arc that I was discussing. It's the Arc of Freedom, and it's got the other pages I just outlined. A kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act a good Samaritan every day if need be. It may mean the loss of many nights' sleep, great interference with your pleasures, interruptions to your business. It may mean sharing your money and your home, counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to police courts, sanitariums, hospitals, jails, and asylums, and police courts is what I meant. This is how they did it back then. But today it's not too practical to have these strange alcoholics in our home, because today is a whole different level. 2023, there's all kind of places alcoholics can go to now. It wasn't like it was in the beginning because it has expanded. The fellowship has expanded, and help for us alcoholics has expanded so greatly, and it is just a beautiful thing. Because it helped save my life a bunch of times, right? Being I'm in the back of an ambulance and I wake up somewhere in a treatment center, or mental ward or something. See, they sold my butt up for a little while, and then they try to give me some more help. So it's a whole different ball game today. But if we need to take somebody in our home, if we can trust them, we do that. We do the best that we can today in helping other people, no doubt about it. And we go to any lengths to do it. So, and with that, I would like to close out tonight. I'll let Brother Dan close us out. Next week, we'll be talking about steps 8 and 9. And probably 10 and probably 11. Let's see how much time we have. But anyway, thanks everybody for being here and being part of this journey in this beautiful life of sobriety. Truly a gift from God.